A sad Reddit story. My wife cheated on a girls' trip and I exposed her. I thought I knew my wife. We've been together for 6 years, married for 3, and I genuinely believed we would make this work. But sometimes the people closest to you can completely blindside you in ways you never saw coming. This is a story of how I discovered my wife was living a double life and how Google Maps timeline turned my entire world upside down. I'm 28, my wife's 26, and we've been together since college. I work in tech, she's a nurse, and we have this nice life together. A 2-bedroom apartment, a dog, the whole thing. Before I started narrating stories, I didn't realize the medical profession had such a bad reputation for being unfaithful to their partners. And before you leave some lame comment about it's the person, not the profession, well, according to the private investigators and divorce attorneys, the profession might really be behind these spouses cheating on their partner. I thought I'd found my person. We were talking about kids, maybe buying a house. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was and how completely blind I was to what was really happening. About 2 months ago, my wife started talking about this girls' trip. Her college friends were planning this big reunion weekend in Miami. Now, I'm not the controlling type. I've always supported her by allowing her to have her own friendships and do her own thing. She was super excited about it. She'd been stressed with work lately, pulling double shifts at the hospital, and I thought this would be good for her. A chance to unwind, catch up with old friends, maybe get some sun on the beach. The trip was supposed to be for 4 days, Thursday through Sunday. My wife and 3 of her college friends, one I'll call the brunette, another the blonde, and someone new to the group who was the blonde's coworker who'd recently moved to our city. I helped her pack and even drove her to the airport. She was practically bouncing with excitement, talking about how they would hit South Beach, try new restaurants, and maybe do some shopping, all normal girls trip stuff. But here's where things start getting weird. The first day went fine. She texts me, she lands and sends a few pictures of the hotel and the view from their room, normal stuff. But then Friday night rolls around and communication just stops. Guys, what do I always say? Pay attention to all red flags, no matter how subtle they are. People will say, oh, she was with her friends. Oh man, she was busy. The hell with that. There are 24 hours in a day. Some of these women can type 100 words per second with 4-inch nails. Get out of here with that. Now, I'm not clingy. I don't need constant updates. But my wife usually texts me good night, especially when she's traveling. Friday night, nothing. Saturday morning, radio silence until like 2 p.m. When she finally texts, it's just, hey babe, having so much fun, talk later. No details, no pictures, nothing about what they're doing. And for her, that's weird. She's usually all about sharing everything, her food, the sunset, random funny moments with friends. Saturday night, same thing. I tried calling around 10 p.m. their time just to say hi and see how the trip was going. It went straight to voicemail. I figured maybe they were at a loud club or something. It's no big deal. But then Sunday comes and she's supposed to fly back that evening. I text her asking about her flight and if she needs a ride from the airport. Hours go by before she responds, and when she does, it's just flight's delayed, might not be back until late. Here's where my gut starts telling me something's off. All right, whatever your gut tells you, what you might suspect, your gut is probably right on the money. My wife has always been super organized about travel. She would have known about a flight delay hours in advance and already figured out backup plans. This last-minute scattered communication just wasn't like her. So I did something I'd never done before. Check her Google Maps timeline. Here's the thing. We both use Google Maps for navigation, and we shared our Google accounts years ago for family sharing purposes. I completely forgot that Google Maps keeps a detailed timeline of everywhere you go if location history is turned on. My wife had it turned on. I opened Google Maps on my laptop, signed into her Google account. I still had access to it and clicked on the timeline feature. My heart started beating a little faster after what I saw. Sunday evening, her timeline shows her at Miami International Airport. Okay, that checks out with the flight delay story. But then I noticed something weird. The timeline shows her at the airport earlier that morning around 7 a.m., then left and came back. That doesn't make sense. If her flight was delayed on Sunday evening, why would she be at the airport early Sunday morning? My mind starts racing. I scroll back through the timeline to Friday and Saturday, and what I see makes me say, what the hell? Friday night, when she went radio silent, the timeline shows her at some residential address that's definitely not their hotel. I click on the location. It's an apartment complex about 25 minutes from South Beach. Saturday, it's the same thing. Most of the day, she is at this same residential address, briefly at the hotel, and then back to this other location. The timeline even shows her routes, how long she was at each place, and when she arrived and left. It's like having a minute-by-minute account of her entire trip. I pulled up Instagram and started looking at her friends' posts from the trip. You know, if you think about it, in some cases, you find out if your partner is cheating just by social media. The brunette posted a bunch of stories, normal girls trip stuff, pool time, fancy dinners, and getting ready to go out. But I noticed something suspicious. In the brunette stories from Friday and Saturday night, it's only 3 girls. The brunette, the blonde, and the new girl. No sign of my wife. The captions are stuff like missing our 4th tonight, and she's doing her own thing with the wink emoji. What the hell does that mean, doing her own thing? I screenshot everything before the stories disappear. Then I start looking through the blonde's post. Same thing. 3 girls, not 4. There's even a story from Saturday with the caption, "When your friend abandons you for other plans." Now I'm really spiraling. I checked the new girl's Instagram, even though I didn't know her well. Her stories show the same thing, but then I see something that makes my heart stop. There's a story from Saturday night, a video of 3 girls at a rooftop bar. But in the background, I swear I can see someone who looks like my wife at a table with a guy. I watched the video like 50 times, trying to get a better look. The video's only a few seconds long and dark, but that looks like her hair, her laugh that you can barely hear over the music. Sunday night, around 11 p.m., my wife finally came home. She acted normal, excited to see me, and talked about how amazing the trip was. But I could barely focus on what she said because all I could think about was what I found. She goes on and on about this restaurant they went to, this beach club they hit up, and how the blonde got too drunk and they had to carry her home. All stories that apparently happened while Google Maps timeline showed her at that random residential address. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know if I was overreacting. Maybe there's a logical explanation for everything. But Monday morning, after she leaves for work, I decide to change everything. I call the brunette. I've known the brunette for years. She was in our wedding party, and we've hung out dozens of times. If anyone would be straight with me, it would be her. The conversation starts normal. I ask how the trip was, thanked her for looking out for my wife, but then I asked the question that's been eating at me. So, what did you guys get up to Friday and Saturday nights? She was pretty vague about the details. There's this pause, this long, uncomfortable pause. We just did the usual stuff. You know how girls' trips are. But I can hear it in her voice. She's uncomfortable. Yeah, I saw some of your Instagram stories. Looked like fun. Though I noticed it was just you 3 in most of them. Another pause. Listen, her voice gets quiet. I think you should talk to your wife about this. Talk to her about what? I can't. This isn't my place. But you're a good guy and you deserve better than this. And then she hangs up. Guys, that's to be expected. What's the saying? Birds of a feather flock together. Women usually don't snitch on their friends. I just stare at my phone. She just confirmed my worst fears without actually saying anything. I take the day off work. I've never done anything like this before, but I need answers. I go back to Google Maps timeline and start digging into the details. I click on that residential address where she spent most of Friday and Saturday. The timeline shows that she arrived on Friday night around 9 p.m. and didn't leave until Saturday afternoon around 2 p.m. Then she briefly returned to the hotel and returned to the same address on Saturday evening. I copied the address and looked it up. It's a nice apartment complex about 20 minutes from the beach. I started by reverse searching the address online and checking social media posts tagged with the location. After about an hour of digging through Instagram location tags and public posts, I found what I was looking for. A guy posted photos from his apartment's balcony on Friday and Saturday on Instagram. The view and apartment complex layout perfectly matched what Google Maps showed my wife spending time. I click on his profile and boom, this guy lives in Miami. He's 32, works in real estate, and apparently knows my wife. How do I know this? Because she's tagged in several of his photos from the past few months. I've never seen photos of my wife taken when she was supposedly at work late or out with girlfriends locally. There is a photo from 3 weeks ago, my wife and this guy at some fancy restaurant. The caption reads, "Finally convinced this beautiful woman to leave her man for a real dinner." I literally throw up in my car. I drove home in a daze, but I'm not done digging. Now that I know about this guy, everything starts falling into place. I go through my wife's phone bill online. I'm an authorized user on our plan, so I can see call logs and text records. Sure enough, there have been hundreds of texts and calls to a Miami number over the past 2 months, a number that matches this guy's area code. The timing of these calls is what really gets me. Late night calls when my wife was supposedly asleep next to me, lunch break calls that sometimes lasted over an hour, and calls made during times when she told me she was working extra shifts. I print everything out, screenshots, phone records, Google Maps timeline history. I feel sick doing it, but I need proof. I can't just accuse her of cheating based on suspicions, but the evidence is overwhelming. My wife's been having an affair with this guy for at least 2 months, and the girls' trip was just a cover so she could spend a long weekend with him. In reality, this is how you should do it. If you have any inclination that your spouse is cheating, gather evidence first before confronting them. My wife comes home from work Monday night and is acting completely normal. She tells me about a work day, asks what I want for dinner, and plans our week like nothing happened. I watch her for a while, trying to understand how someone can be such a good actor. How can she look me in the eye and pretend everything's fine when she just spent 4 days with another man? Finally, I can't take it anymore. "How was your time with him?" She freezes. "What did you say?" I asked how your time with him was in Miami at his apartment. She slowly turns around. I can see her brain working, trying to figure out how much I know and what she can still deny. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because I have your Google Maps timeline showing you spent Friday night and most of Saturday at his apartment. I have his Instagram post tagged with you, and your phone records show hundreds of calls and texts." Suddenly, her face goes blank in silence. "So, you don't have anything to say?" She returns with, "What do you want me to say?" What happens next is honestly hard to describe. Strangely, my wife breaks down completely. Not the "I'm sorry I got caught" kind of crying, but the ugly, snotty, hyperventilating type of breakdown. Then she admits everything. The affair started 2 months ago when this guy slid into her DMs after seeing her in the brunette's Instagram stories. They started texting, calling, and meeting up when she claimed to be working late. The girls' trip was his idea. He suggested she use it as a cover to spend time with him without me getting suspicious. But here's the part that kills me. She tells me she was planning to leave me anyway. The affair wasn't some drunken mistake or a moment of weakness. She'd been planning her exit strategy for weeks. This guy had been pushing her to divorce me and move to Miami. She was apparently going to wait until after our lease was up in 3 months, then break the news and disappear. I just sit there listening to my entire life get destroyed in real time. She keeps apologizing, saying she never meant for me to find out this way, that she was going to tell me eventually. She claims she still loves me, but is not in love with me anymore. The conversation goes on for hours. She tries to blame our relationship problems, says we've been growing apart anyway. She brings up fights we had months ago, claims I wasn't meeting her emotional needs, but I'm not buying any of it. If she was unhappy, we could have worked on it. We could have gone to counseling. Instead, she chose to cheat, lie, and plan her escape without giving our marriage a real chance. The next few days are a blur, and I was angry the whole fucking time. She stays at her sister's place while we figure out the next steps. I contacted a lawyer and started looking into divorce proceedings. The hardest part is telling our families and friends, having to explain that your marriage is over because your wife was living a double life. The brunette calls me a few days later to apologize. She says she found out about this guy on Friday night of the trip when my wife disappeared so she could meet him. The brunette confronted her about it, but my wife begged her not to say anything until she could figure out how to handle the situation. The brunette feels horrible about keeping the secret, even for a few days. She says the whole friend group is disgusted with my wife's behavior. I've been in therapy since all this went down. The hardest part isn't even the cheating, it's the lying. My wife could look me in the eye daily and pretend to be someone she wasn't. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed. Looking back, she had been distant for a while, less interested in sex, always on her phone, working extra shifts more often, but I trusted her completely and never thought to question it. Google Maps timeline probably saved me from wasting even more years of my life. If I hadn't checked that Sunday night, she might have successfully executed her plan to keep me around for months before leaving. I'm grateful I found out when I did, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. 6 years of my life are gone, and 3 years of marriage are down the drain. I'm doing better now, focusing on myself, rebuilding my sense of trust. But I'll admit, it will be a long time before I can think about dating again. Here's where the story gets some justice though. I didn't just quietly accept what happened. I decided that if my wife was going to blow up our life, everyone should know the truth. Remember how she was planning to wait 3 months and then make it seem like we just grew apart? I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I posted on Facebook, not a long dramatic post, but just the facts. My wife and I are getting divorced because she's been having an affair for 2 months and used a girls' trip as cover to spend time with her boyfriend in Miami. I tagged her, the brunette, the blonde, and several of our mutual friends. The post blew up. Her family had no idea what was happening. Her coworkers, our mutual friends, everyone learned the truth at once. My wife was furious and said I was being vindictive and trying to ruin her life, but I don't regret it. After months of being lied to, I was done protecting her image. The guy apparently wasn't happy about suddenly being exposed to all of her family and friends either. It turns out he had no idea she was married when they first started talking. She had told him she was separated and in the process of divorcing. When he found out the truth, that she was still living with me and actively lying to both of us, he ended things immediately. So, my wife lost her husband and her boyfriend in the same week. My wife wasn't some cartoon villain. She was a nurse who saved lives at work and seemed caring and trustworthy. Top 5 professions, careers most likely to cheat on their partner. Number 1, public service, police officers, firefighters, and military. Number 2, pilots and flight crew. Number 3, nurses and doctors. Number 4, entrepreneurs. 5, bankers. But she was living 2 completely different lives and somehow managing to keep them separate in her mind. The scariest part is how good she was at it. It makes you wonder about relationships in general, right? How well do we really know the people closest to us? My advice to anyone going through something similar is simple. Trust your gut. When something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags just because you want to believe the best in someone. And if you're in a relationship that's not making you happy, be an adult about it. Talk to your partner. Try to work things out or end it honestly. Don't do what my wife did, because the truth always comes out eventually. When it does, you lose not just your relationship, but also your integrity and the respect of everyone who trusted you. I'm doing all right now. I've got my own place. I'm back to hanging out with friends, and I feel like I can finally breathe again. It will take time to heal from something like this, but at least now I know the truth. And sometimes, as painful as it is, the truth is precisely what you need to move forward. Oh, the divorce was finalized in 60 days. I was only married for 3 years. And since this is a no-fault divorce state, we just basically went our separate ways.